Welcome to Life
on
Life's
Terms
with your host, Justin.
and Chelsey.
Today's topics, we're going to talk about what is our definition of bullying and some of our experiences with bullying. How do schools, or how the hell is it that schools got so much power in influencing our children? When do we give that power away? And why are educators implementing these current philosophies without serious consulting us as parents or us as the public? Is where I think we're going to go in this next hour. Mm-hmm. So come join us. I think it'll be provocative thinking experience and exercise for all of us.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's dive right into bullying. What kind of bullying did you experience as a kid?
Specifics, or do you mean just
Sure.
verbally, physically? Well, of course, with females, it was always the emotional, the verbal bullying. I'd say was like guys are always throwing fists.
Yeah. Well, not all the time.
No, that's true.
Not all the time. There's
More
some other
likely to
things.
be throwing fists than young females.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That's usually how little boys break it down. But in my generation, we started having the no fight policy. So in my school, it was serious detention and withdrawal from school if you got into a physical altercation.
Oh, wow. They just took you right out.
Yeah. You were suspended after 3 fights. And if you had 5 fights, you were expelled.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you went to another school and had 3 more fights, you were expelled out of the school
From
board.
the school board. Right. Okay.
That's how it was basically done. So there's zero tolerance.
Yeah. Did you have suspensions in school?
Me personally?
Yeah. You.
Of course I did.
That was a dumb question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't think I did. That's pretty good in school.
So I think I think the factor for me was I was a manipulator. So I could manipulate the teachers like to a whole nother level. And I think the only reason why I had such experience with that is because I was raised with older people. Like my mom always had me around adults and stuff, so I had a very quick vernacular. I was always able to like articulate what I needed to say, and I could express my emotions and my feelings, and therefore that always kind of got me out of the deep end.
Right.
So that saved my ass a lot. But so the kind of bullying that you experienced was just like, to surmise it, or we don't even have to surmise it, but like, was it mostly like the manipulation, the back chatter talk? Like, what were the ones that were like pinnacle that you can still remember today?
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. Well, okay, I remember my first or second day of junior high. It wasn't females picking on me, which was odd because that's what it usually was. And I mean, I'm not saying I was picked on all the time. That's not the case. And I did mention in a previous episode, I was also on the other end of the spectrum doing the bullying. But anyways, I do remember the first or second day of high school, there was this older boy. Every time I would grab my stuff out of my locker and it'd be time to get to class, I would turn around and he would be blocking me and he wouldn't let me pass in the hallway.
Well, he liked you.
No, he was really mean. And he did it every day to the point where I was almost crying and made me late for class every day. And I remember getting in trouble from my teacher. And I don't know why it stopped or whatever happened with that, but I just remember being, because I was a pretty shy kid, and I was just like, it was so bad. I don't know, like, looking at it now, it's so silly, but at the time it was so terrible for me. And then I think in elementary it was just.
So did that give you a lot of fear and anxiety about like the situation that you were going to incur?
Yeah, I would try and get to my locker like super fast and beat him there, and every time I turned around, he was there.
And he would do what? Just intimidate you, or what?
He would literally just not let me pass. He would like step in front of me. I would step to the side. He'd step in front of me. He'd put his arms out. I was just walking side to side in the hallway instead of being able to pass him and make it to class. And he would always step out of the way right before that last bell, run into his classroom, and then I'd still have to run across the school.
Is this junior high, elementary?
Junior high.
That's odd, actually.
Yeah.
I bet you he liked it.
No.
Well, what would
I was an odd one.
what would
in junior high.
indicate what would indicate that he didn't like you?
I think because he was in a relationship with a girl in his grade.
Big deal.
Oh, maybe I'm just bad at picking up on that crap.
I think kind of like, yeah, because boys are stupid.
Yeah.
In junior high, they don't know how to express their feelings in a way that's like all of a sudden girls had cooties and now they want to nail them.
Yeah.
Especially in junior high. So it's
it's everyone's in puberty.
And because little boys have a fight or flight complex or sometimes freeze, right?
Yeah.
They're looking at the opposite sex going like, I fucking hate you, but I don't really.
Yeah.
So it gets real strange in a little boy's mind.
You guys don't know what's going on.
Or a junior high school kid's head.
Yeah.
Right? They're all fucked up. Because at first they would have pulled your hair.
Yes.
Like in grade 5.
In elementary school, it totally had that.
And then now in like grade 7 or 8, they're like, I don't want to pull her hair anymore.
Yeah, but I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So I'm going to stand in front of her and not let her pass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like, I guess.
So
anyway.
I think little boys are bad for that. I know in elementary school, so I failed grade 2 with my dyslexia. I was unable to pass the basic standard of grade 2. I just wasn't able to do it.
So they just held you back?
Yeah. So that was always an uphill battle for me. So I was always looked at as stupid, and that set the precedent for my entire elementary school.
Oh, no.
So, and I was always in special education.
Okay.
So like that really hurt my self-esteem.
I always assumed the special ed class was just children with behavioral issues. I guess that shows how little you knew if you weren't in that class.
I mean, I didn't really have behavioral issues in the fact that I didn't know how to deal with my frustration.
Yeah, see, I
Sure.
always thought that's
Like in that context, sure. But there was way deeper issues than that. Like I couldn't read. I would flip B's and D's, P's and nines. Like I just had a real issue with that. And then when you actually look at people who are highly intelligent, like Albert Einstein, who is a horrific person, actually. Like, I mean, he was
Is he really?
Oh yeah, Albert Einstein was an anti-Semite. He hated Jews.
I didn't know that. I actually had.
He's a Nazi.
I wanted to read about him so bad. I had a book on hold at the library and I forgot to pick it up.
Yeah, like he totally, he's not a nice, and they glorify him as a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's very glorified. That's why I wanted to read a book.
It's not real. Like, it's not real. If you actually look at like when World War II happened and all that stuff, and yeah, like he was not, he was not a nice guy. So anyway, but he also had Asperger's. So like if you were to try to get Albert Einstein to do 2 + 2, his mind was not there.
Okay.
Because he was always thinking like in the extreme.
Yes, yeah,
beyond.
the huge
So he had a very
picture.
difficult time understanding basic things, right? So when he was going into school, he actually failed grade 5.
Okay.
And the reason why he failed grade 5 was because he couldn't write his name. He couldn't get the B in Albert.
Yeah.
Right? Like he just couldn't write his name. And then if you look at Stephen Hawking had the same mental issue as well. Like he had an impediment when it came to learning as well. He had a very difficult time learning very elementary things. So like his basic knowledge of scholastics was difficult for him to accept. And then when he got into astrophysics, it was like the light bulb went on and then everything fit for him.
Yeah.
And if you look at Nash, who's another serious math dude, he had schizophrenia. And so like, I mean, his math mind was unreal, like unparalleled. But he just saw things like he had schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was growing up with dyslexia, there wasn't much known about it. And they just segregated me out of class. And then what ended up happening was they all knew that I was highly intelligent because of my photographic memory as a kid. Like I could recall things like you have no idea.
Yeah.
And the teachers picked up that like this motherfucker's a manipulative cocksucker. Like they picked that shit up, right? Pretty quick. And so then that's why I ended up going to that boarding school in Southern Ontario. And the reason for that was because like there was like 15,000 applicants every year and they accepted 5 kids every year to go to that school. So you had to be exceptionally intelligent in the context of how you learned.
Okay.
So they didn't care what what you knew. They cared about how you're learning it.
Okay.
So
okay.
a lot of the tests
That's really
were,
interesting.
So the equivalency IQ test in Canada is we don't give a shit what you retain. We like that doesn't matter to us. What really matters to us is how you're learning. So like, for instance, one of the things that they gave me as a test was these blocks that were red and white. And you would start off with 5 blocks. They give you an exposure of a picture of 2 minutes, and then you'd have to put the blocks together. Mm-hmm. So you get to see the picture for 2 minutes, and then they put the picture down so you can't see it.
Yeah.
And you have to replicate the format of what you had just seen.
Oh, neat.
And then all of a sudden, so they do a couple of those. You start off with 5, then it's 6. And then as they're giving you more blocks, the exposure time is less and less that you see till eventually you're at 15 blocks, and your exposure time is 15 seconds.
Holy. So does the original picture stay the same? It's just added on, or is the picture
completely different?
Oh my god.
So your brain is completely like you're always trying
starting over.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I did really well. I think I got to the 12th module in that.
Holy.
And then from there, so I scored in the Canadian IQ system like an 1160, which would be like if I could do an IQ test would be the equivalent of a 155.
Right. Wow.
Right. So and it's all, like I said, based on learning. It's not about retention of because I really hadn't learned fuck all. It was all about what's the potential of him learning? Like how quick can he learn this stuff?
Yeah.
And so when I went to that school, their whole entire philosophy was we need to teach him how to teach himself.
Okay.
And so when I went there, so I started off in that program in Belleville so I went when I was in grade 7, really grade 8. And I was at a grade 2 reading level, grade 1 comprehension level for across the board. And then by the time I left, I was grade 12 and OAC in Ontario, which is grade 13. OAC is an Ontario academic credit, which basically means you're accepted into university. So like, let's say grade 12, you fuck up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you really want to go to university, you could at that time do one more year and get 2 or 3 OAC credits, and then you were going. It was almost like an equivalency.
Yeah.
Basically saying you can get to university with those OAC credits.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I was inside of 2 years. And that was all because the program, it wasn't me, it was the program itself, right? But going back to being bullied, my self-esteem was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was gone.
Go back a second. So how did you manage your dyslexia, or what happened there?
Like in the school itself, like in that 2-year program?
Yeah.
So basically what ended up happening is, like I said, they just taught me how to teach myself.
Okay.
It's very hard.
And that helped your dyslexia?
Yeah,
I know people who have had it.
It's hard to explain because there's so many different ways. It's like me trying to explain the AA program. I can't tell you how the fuck it worked. It just worked.
It just worked.
Right.
Okay.
And then that was the same thing with that program in and they actually closed that program in Southern Alberta, unfortunately. Sorry, Southern Ontario. They closed it. And it had a high rate of success, like huge success. Most kids out of that program.
Do you know why they closed it?
Funding. So they would fly me every weekend from like Northern Ontario to Toronto and then throw me on a bus and go to this town every weekend for 2 years.
Wow.
Then while I was there was a residence and boarding room staff, and there was the teachers and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like it was a real private school. Like when we were talking about private school, that's a real private school, right? That was free. But in the same breath, that's the school that really, if it gave me anything outside of learning how to teach myself, it gave me the self-confidence that was necessary for me to succeed in life. 100%. Because they actually, when I got there, they actually told me, you are intelligent. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. Why do you think you did all of those tests? Like it was 3 years of testing prior to going to that school.
Holy.
And then they finally made the decision, yeah, you can be one of, I think that year alone, they only accepted 4, and they were only going to give me a year. And then they ended up expanding it for another year for me, just so that by the time I got into high school, so like when I went there, I was in grade 7 in the old school board I was in. Yeah. I got there right away. They excelled me into grade 8 so that I was with my own peer group. And then by the time I left, so like I said, I was only there for 2 years. By the time I left, I was walking into high school at grade 11.
Right.
So I was like even above, because in high school it doesn't matter.
No.
You know, you're like age doesn't matter. If you can take those courses, you take those
Yeah,
courses.
exactly. You just take it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to college, right? So by the time I left, like I said, I was across the board grade 11. And yeah, I mean, that's school too, though. That's where I learned drugs. I mean, that's where I got into heroin. That's where I started fucking hitting acid and the whole bit. I was just about to be
like, this sounds like such an amazing opportunity. You're so fortunate that you got to go through that. Which
and then I started using drugs. I was using drugs actually probably before that. But that's where my mom wasn't around.
Yeah.
And do you think that the counselors are going to tell my fucking mom that I'm using drugs there? Not a hope in hell. like just not happening. So everything that happened down there, they didn't say anything to my mom. You know, and I came back and I was like banging fucking heroin. But I was smart. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I shouldn't say, like, I don't know. I could get through school. So anyways, prior to that, like I said, my self-esteem was just wrecked. I didn't have any. And then of course being impoverished as a youth in elementary school, I think that really affected my self-esteem as well. You know, I mean, I know in your blog you were saying that when you were younger, the poverty that you had went through, so on and so forth, you never wanted that like to be called that when you became an adult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Being on social housing, so on and so forth, right? So it sticks with you. Like that poverty issue sticks with you, knowing. Did you ever have
and you know what? Mine wasn't like, God, my parents weren't like flat broke or anything like that. I don't want to give that impression.
Yeah.
But I didn't have as much money as the friends that I tried to stick around with. I was always the odd one out, and that was really hard. They made sure I knew it too, right? And then I also seen how the people who had even less money than what I had, how they were treated. And it was just a scary thing to imagine being in their shoes. So. Yeah,
I mean, I think that one of the biggest things that hit me when I was with my friends who had more money was if I break their toys, my mom can't afford to replace it.
Yeah.
So I would never play with their shit.
Just so scared.
You know what I mean? Like I was never comfortable. And then when you look at that as like, I think also that it almost classes you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get stuck in a class. Like,
yeah.
Well, I'll hang out with the kids in the ghetto as opposed to going across the tracks or whatever. You know what I mean?
So
like,
to speak, yeah.
Like, fuck that, right? Yet those kids are the kids that really you need to make inroads with so that when you go to college, you have opportunity. Because those kids are the kids who are going to be running your fucking town.
Oh, for sure.
It's not the kids in the ghetto.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not unless they're drug dealers or whatever the fuck they are. Right? Like it's totally, and it's strange the way how we've segregated ourselves by economic value. You know what I mean? Like it's
hard not to.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel comfortable with somebody from like Rodeo Drive or wherever the fuck it is? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel comfortable with those people? You may not, because you don't feel privileged enough to be sitting at that table with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's strange the way how our mind works.
It is, yeah.
You know, and it's one of these things where you almost have to, like I would insinuate with your kids, you almost want to teach them like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't.
what you have economically, but yet it always will. Especially young, because that's the value that's already instigated with young minds. You know, that's the value they have going. Like I have Nike shoes. What the fuck?
I was just about to say.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have LA Gear shoes. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
know, right? Even I remember in junior high, it was all about parents, or friends or peers, their parents, what they drove. They'd be like, wow. Oh, my dad just got a new Escalade. Oh, well, my mom drives a Hummer. I'm like, oh, man. We have like a really old Ford. We have a minivan, like whatever the vehicle was, right? It's
like a step away from being a fucking farm truck.
Yeah.
And it had a dead deer in the back like 2 days ago.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, I was so happy we didn't have to go to the grocery store anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm standing here in my fucking rubber boots. It's supposed to rain today. Do you get it?
Jeez.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I mean, I think Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing. If I can remember when I was a youth, those were the major issues. And then that also fed into me becoming fat as a kid, which didn't help.
Eating your emotions.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's where addiction probably really started for me. You know, that was the
Makes
onset
sense,
young, right? And then I basically got a fucking attitude and just started like beating kids up all the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know, that was like how I got suspended and you know that stuff. So I'd have to do things so like the teachers wouldn't find out. So they'd be like, "Well, prove it," and they could never prove it, and they could never prove it, right? Like the kid that I supposedly beat up, and so like the teachers like, "Oh, they just give him a hard time because he's in special education, but the kid's not." You know what I mean? Like all this stuff, they would actually make my excuse for me.
You didn't even have to do anything.
No, they
just prove it.
Yeah, prove it. Fuck, I didn't hit you. Where did I hit you? In the bathroom? Well, put a fucking camera in there.
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't hit you. What are you, like crazy? I didn't know though that my hands would swell when I first started hitting people.
Didn't realize it.
Well, so then I would start I would start like elbowing them.
Just
because if I elbow them, then like there's no marks, right?
Oh man.
Yeah, because I would see I'd have to hide my hands and shit. Like the first couple times I would punch them, and that would be like evidence. So already I was like criminally thinking.
Yeah, just came naturally to you.
Yeah, kind of.
Holy.
Yeah, right. Any other instances in high school? Like, did you get grouped and classed in high school as well?
Kind of the same thing going forward with junior high. I just remember my last year of high school, I stopped hanging out with the people I had been trying to, well, not trying to, the people I had hung out with in elementary and junior high. The last year of high school, I kind of got a fuck it, I don't care attitude anymore. And I went and flocked out with people that I felt comfortable with, that had the same mentality as me, the same interests. So I became a bit of a pothead, but...
Well, yeah, like I said, when I was in that boarding school, that's when I arrived, so to say.
Yeah.
When I started drinking, I was like, oh, all my problems are gone now. And then I found confidence in the bottle, right?
Right.
And then that's the school that I did. I went on a 3-month acid trip.
Holy.
Yeah, man.
I've never done acid.
Oh, fuck. It was mind expanding. Well, we'll get into that later on. But yeah, it was acid opened up my mind a lot. Like a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard some crazy stories about it. I've just never done it.
I would, if I wasn't an addict, I can say this. Psychedelics never instigated my addiction.
They're just fun. Well, like I've done mushrooms.
So, yeah. But the difference is now knowing that I'm an addict, I would never try ayahuasca or acid or shrooms or peyote again.
Yeah.
I've done them. I've never done ayahuasca, but I've done the others. And I just don't see a need to do it now. I mean, I meditate. I know how to tap into DMT, like my own self, you know. I know how to I like the ability of control. And there are certain instances where you can lose control even being sober.
Yes.
Where you get to give yourself up. And really that's like a daily thing of saying, well, God, help me through this day because I have no fucking control of what's going to happen from now until the time I get back to bed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so that's another expression of losing control. And I think when you're doing psychedelic drugs, that's really what ends up happening, right?
Just losing control.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to. You have to. Like, it's like the alien comes to you and it's like, you follow me. And you're like,
sure,
fucking guess so. And then the guys who have a bad trip or the people who have a bad trip are the people who try to hold the fuck on.
Yes. Even just when I have done mushrooms in the past, near the end of the night where I'm like, I just don't want to fucking be high anymore. When all of a sudden my amazing, fun, laughing hysterically trip turns into a bad trip.
Yeah, and you look
And
at
I'm like, I
yourself
just
in the
wanted to
mirror.
be over it. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like,
And
I'm fucking dead.
Yeah.
I'm fucking dead. What the fuck is wrong with this bullshit?
Yeah, where at the beginning of the night, your reflection is hilarious. It's fucked up, but it's still funny. And then at the end of the night, I'm like ready to cry. Like, what the fuck is that? What's wrong with my face?
Yeah. And then that's the point when you have to just let go and be like, okay, we're gonna ride this out, blah blah blah, smoke a joint, whatever. I'm just glad that that's not a part of my life anymore, where it's like I have to be amicable towards the substances that I just put into my body. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, right? That logic, right? Like, it makes sense, but what the fuck at the same time?
Like, I need to drive and I just drank a 2-6. I guess I need an 8-ball of Coke.
Yeah, right? There we go.
I mean,
problem solved.
Cocaine took my alcoholism away. Right? So did you get called out by your friends for like, you started drinking in high school, right?
Junior high.
Okay, so like when you were a blackout drunk, were your friends calling you out then, or were they like, she's the party girl? Did you get glorified?
Nobody ever. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to think of all the different stages here. I was sloppy for the first when I was really young, but in my early 20s, I was definitely glorified. I was called Frank the Tank. Like, I was the one female that could keep up with all the dudes, and it was just ridiculous. I think by then, because I had such an amazingly high tolerance to it, like, it really was surprising how much I could drink. And I used to be so proud of it too, but now I'm like, really? Is that something to be proud of?
It's funny how we measure our. It's funny how we measure our worth by how much we can abuse our bodies.
Yeah, like I used to be like high-fived because the next day after an all-nighter, I'd hop in the shower and crack a beer. Well, and everyone thought that was so hilarious and so awesome. And I was like, woo! Yeah, no.
I remember younger in elementary school, people be asking me how much marijuana was.
In elementary?
Yeah. Like when DARE program came. Like, I remember standing, I've said this before, I remember standing in DARE and the cops showing us fucking oregano. And I'm like, that's not weed.
Nice
that's not marijuana, Officer Piccolo. Like it's not. And your fucking dog Storm can't smell the weed in my pocket. Like, your dog sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with it. And I'm just sweating bullets because the dog's in the fucking room, right? And then I realized that gave me the more balls than anything, because then I realized that the dogs suck. They fucking suck. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. I mean, it's in my pocket, and the dog's not even looking at me.
Maybe it was just like a brand new in training dog.
No.
No?
It was no. They
I'm just
fucking.
trying to give.
I mean, I think the reason what it was, the dog didn't have the command on it to be searching or whatever the fuck it was. I can't justify why it didn't work.
You just know it
but
didn't.
All that did for me in my mind was like, you people are fucking stupid. You're as stupid as the teachers. That's what I thought in grade 6 when this cop's trying to tell me, do you take an oath not to do drugs? And I'm like, like, already doing them, you fucking moron. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
right?
A little late.
Yeah. and then come junior high, that's when I got taken to Southern Ontario. So like, actually my junior high teacher in the school that I was in was actually a quadriplegic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Mr. Wilson. He was amazing. Great teacher. But I was already being lost in the system.
Yeah.
Like, I was already... if I would have stayed, I probably would have been in junior, like fucking, like, jail for kids. For sure. Like, it would have been...
Like a juvie?
Yeah, at the very least.
Huh.
So it probably saved me from then, but I still went to jail later on in life. Like it just prolonged it.
Delayed the inevitable.
It for me, really. I mean, I wish it wasn't the inevitable, but I mean, it's obviously what happened, right? So that being said, do you think that the schools make the microcosm of the school environment conducive towards this whole entire, like, clan system, these groups and such? Because this is the thing this is where I was getting at with this topic, or this portion of the conversation, is what really gets me is they talk about inclusivity and all this bullshit, but they don't really practice it in the schoolyard. Because
No, they don't.
there's a school right across the street from the studio, and I see kids all the times in groups. They're not being pushed towards working with each other.
Yeah, I think it just my sister. It must have been my sister was over just the other day, and it was same thing. I live right next to two schools actually, and it was recess, and she was looking out the window and she's like, it's crazy how everybody's in groups already. And this is an elementary school. Like everybody comes out the door at the same time and they all branch off into their little groups.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And they're like 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. Now again, because we're going to get into later on, so let's preface this. We're going to get into things like how much power do we give the schools ultimately is what we're going to get into.
Yeah.
Now, when we're talking about inclusivity, though, is that a carte blanche kind of power we want to be giving them to kind of reinforce this idea of breaking down the barriers of a class system? Because, I think it should be that, you know? Mm-hmm. And they say, well, you can't force kids to do whatever. No, yeah, you're right. You can't. But what you can do is you can make activities for everybody that's inclusive. And then all of a sudden, that's gone. You know what I mean? Those groups are gone. Sure, You're all going to have your favorites within your class, but I would suggest that the class doesn't change. Like grade 2 people might hang out with grade 1 or grade 3ers in their groups, but
not very often.
But it's if the grade 2 group is majority the grade 2 kids. Grade 3 kids in the majority group are the grade 3 kids, and there might be the ones that haven't developed as much in grade 3 that are hanging with the grade 2 kids.
Or one who has a sibling.
Sibling,
whatever.
There's many different ways how that happens. So is it better that what we do is we allow lunch for the kids to intermingle as an entire school in regards to a community, and we microcosm them by grade and age? There's many discussions. Like this is what a sociologist does. They look at a society and they figure out how the group works together, how the community works and happens, right?
Yeah.
We need to start looking at what we're doing by developing our young minds is in that same group context, right? We have to so if we're going to allow our teachers to have this kind of power, I think that they need to have a basis of what sociology is. Right?
They would probably benefit from it.
Or even the principal themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because what I'm getting at is we felt classed as kids.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whether it be by economy, age, drinking, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what ended up happening. So what I'm suggesting is if we break down those barriers right away at a youth's age, in the context of school, daycare, all of it, and we reinforce activities intermingled with outclass without any of that, then what does that look like in the end?
So do you mean, like, for example, at recess time, having multiple grades playing together? Or
Well, you'd almost want your teacher to be the leader throughout the recess for each grade. So like grade 2s hang out with grade 2s. It's more segregated within their age groups.
Oh, so you want them to stick to their age groups. Oh, okay, I thought you were saying combine them.
Or I guess you could combine them provided that it's an activity with everybody together.
Yeah.
Right? So either way, I think that's kind of where I'm getting at in context of you want the group to be working together as a whole as opposed to allowing them to segregate themselves in these little social groups.
Yeah.
Right?
Kind of like that makes me think of when I worked at an out of school care for a few years, and that is kindergarten kids to grade 6 kids. And they all, every single activity that we planned for the children, they all had to play together, and we would purposely say there was teams, purposely have the grade 6 kids and grade 4 kids and kindergartners all together and learn how to work together. We would help teach the older children patience with the little ones, and then the little ones that of course are intimidated or fearful, then we would show them it's okay to be with the big kids. So is that what you mean? Like kind of have the like group functions all together?
Yeah.
Because there would be me and another childcare worker
I
leading
guess.
each team.
Yeah, I totally, that's kind of what I'm getting at as an idea. But also, so Kenny and I had a discussion about a little while ago about, like, is that a nature or nurture thing that we class ourselves right away? Or is it like, so if it's a nature thing, that means you knew that coming out of the womb, right?
Yeah.
If it's a nurture thing.
I think it's nurture, isn't
Well,
it?
I would suggest it is.
Absolutely.
However, even with you saying that these activities are happening, break the activity and then you'll see all the kids go to their little...
Oh, yeah, because, exactly.
So my point, right? So is it nature or is it nurture?
Because the way that we had to explain to the older kids to be patient with little ones, or we had to encourage the younger ones to be brave, that means that they are not in their natural form.
Yeah.
Their natural form is to go hang out, big kids on one side of the room, little kids on the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if that's the natural form, nature or nurture?
I guess
right?
nature.
And
it feels like it should be nurtured.
And then if it's nature, so are we already teaching infants that you have an upper class because of your economic privilege? Like how strange is that, right? Like how young is the mind of a human influenced? That's really what we're trying to quantify with this question, right? Because I mean, baby food's baby food. It doesn't matter if you're rich or young. The baby food is the baby food. Yeah, like that doesn't matter. Yet when you're 5, 6, and 7, and one kid's coming in with like rye bread and really good cold cuts and some fucking Dijon mustard, and you're coming in with like the fucking bologna sandwich on Wonder Bread with your fucking pump paper. You're like, I'm not getting the same nutritional value that motherfucker's getting.
Right.
You know what I mean? So at that point we can say that that's quantifiable within economic structures, right? But all of a sudden when you throw them in daycare, it would almost be worthwhile to see what infant toddlers are hanging out with infant toddlers. And are they already segregating themselves, or are they all together? And what's the age group?
That is really interesting.
Right? I mean, that's...
Just put a bunch of toddlers together and see who they venture towards, who they are like naturally drawn to.
So it's kind of wild when you start breaking it down that way, right? I mean, you're looking at it kind of like a scientist or some kind of sociological scientist in the constructs of like what children are and how they're working with each other, and then how do we break these barriers to have real inclusivity?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell somebody later on in life who has learned stereotypes and prejudices
since forever ago.
Forever to say, you need to break that down and it's your responsibility. Like, fuck, man. I put it this way. I have a flu, and I said this with Matt and JP on the last episode. I said, I have a fleur de lis on my arm, so you know I'm French and I can be like a fucking asshole, and I'll make amends tomorrow for it. It's up to me to make sure that the stereotypes of an asshole Frenchman doesn't come out of me. It's up to me. It's not up to you just to say I fucking include you. I mean, I'm telling you, living in Alberta as a Frenchman, when I first came out here, for sure I was discriminated against.
I believe it.
100%. 100%. And it wasn't their fault. It was the fact that we have an asshole province called Quebec that fucking made everybody hate us, as well as the disseminating CBC that made out that we wanted to leave because of cultural divide that had nothing to do with the reason of separation. Like, nothing at all. The real reason for separation was French people were tired of being motherfucking slaves of Canada. That's the reality. They were paid less money. There was no equality. That's the reason why French people jumped to unions and socialism, is because that's the only way they can see a way of equality, because they were never treated normal. Even like you look at Justin Trudeau's family, he comes from the bourgeois family of French people. He comes from the upper class of French. He doesn't come from no fucking Jacques Cartier. He doesn't come from no fucking Park Axe. That's slumming for him. He actually lives with the rich Irish people and Scottish and English people on the west side of Montreal. That's where he lives. He has no idea what it is to be in the Lower East. Not a clue. So there's even a cultural divide with French people. Yeah. The separation had nothing to do with that. But what I'm getting at with this point is that it was up to me to break that barrier by not perpetuating that stereotype. And as a Frenchman, I'm the one who has to recognize that that's the perception that's already there. And it's fine. That's people. That was a learned stereotype. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? If I don't want that stereotype to be perpetuated, I want to be the one person that an English fucker could say, well, he's a Frenchman and he's not
But he's
like
not
that.
that bad.
Exactly. Right? I mean, it's up to...
It's true.
And that's the fact.
I'll admit, I have been like, oh my gosh, that French guy's an asshole. Not about you, but I have said that.
Sure. And I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, should we be sorry about our prejudices? We've learned them. We've learned prejudices because people keep on enacting their stereotypes.
Yeah, I was going to say it's all about stereotypes.
They reinforce it.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? So like, what the fuck? And then that's what I'm saying when we look at children, how do we break? That's where we make inclusivity happen.
Yeah.
That's where we bring that to light.
Well, and children are so easily molded. So easily influenced.
Yeah.
That would be the place to start, right?
And then all of a sudden we don't have to try to change the tide when the kids are older.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, or when you become an adult and you're like, yeah, I shouldn't judge.
Yeah.
You know,
you figure it out on your own.
It's like, I shouldn't judge. Well, guess what? You fucking are, because you've learned a stereotype.
Yeah.
Now you have a prejudice. It doesn't just because you have a prejudice doesn't mean you're a racist.
No,
that's
it
not
does not.
what it
it's
means.
not the same thing.
Prejudice and racism is two opposite ends of the spectrum. And really, when you look at where this conversation developed from, it developed from why are kids segregating themselves?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Right? So that being said, why are we giving so much power to the schools? I mean, we could concede to the idea of a microcosm of the society of the school. Yeah, they should definitely be enforcing some sort of inclusivity at school. However, I think I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here in saying this statement. However, we allow them in the public sector to bring in philosophies like Buddhism and mindfulness to our kids, which is a philosophical, close to a religious ideology.
Yes.
When were the parents ever consulted that they were going to do that?
Yeah. Well, maybe some were, maybe some weren't. I can't obviously speak for other people. Maybe. And this is just my personal opinion because the way I look at meditation and yoga, and actually, you know what? I'm pretty sure I did yoga with children in the out of school care. But anyways, this is coming from my perspective, is those things to me seem pretty harmless and I believe they're beneficial. So for me, that is not an issue. But who knows how many parents out there are completely against that? I don't want my child being taught meditation.
So there are some Catholics. There are some Catholics out there that believe that yoga is the dissemination of something that might need to be exorcised out of a child.
What? Wow.
Because it comes from a demon to their perspective.
Okay.
Right? So this is my point: is as much as we're saying that we're trying to be inclusive of all. We cut out what we decide that we want to cut out, right? What we cut out is we say we're going to create this microcosm in school, but fuck you all if you have any contradicting ideology next to what we're bringing into the program. That is ridiculous. The taxpayers pay the teachers. The taxpayers pay the school board. The taxpayers pay the people who culminate the curriculum for our children. And they're not being asked. You have parent-teacher conferences and you have parent-teacher groups, so on and so forth, but it's dictated to the parents is what it seems like to me that this is what it's going to be. It's not said, well, what do you think about this? And I think a lot of that comes from all of a sudden your kids come home from school and they're doing some math you don't even understand and it's grade 3.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, how the fuck do I even interject into the social constructs of what they're making in school? Point being is there should be no social constructs in school except for inclusivity as a whole. You see what I'm saying? Like it shouldn't be this thing of, well, we're going to develop all this bullshit into your child's program so that they accept all this stuff. Fuck that. You're there to teach them how to do math faster than somebody from China, because that's our competition at this point.
And you think that's all it should be?
To a large degree.
Okay. I think part of it may be that there may be a lot of parents out there that just don't give a shit about that extra stuff that is being taught to them, right? Some parents don't want to be as included in decision making. It's kind of like they're, okay, you just teach my kid, I'm going to go to work.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I'm getting at too.
Yeah.
When we talk about feminism, what did feminism really give us? We thought that extra income into the household would create an individual person.
Yes.
Such being the wife, right?
Right.
It didn't do that. It made it more expensive. What it really did is now you have to have two incomes in order to support a household. Before, the one person caring for the house could buy a home working at fucking Sears.
Yep.
Can that happen today? Not a hope in hell is that happening. Are you getting a fucking mortgage working at the fucking corner store?
Right? No.
It's not happening.
No.
So what did it really give us? It was a perpetuation in my estimation of the cabal or the conglomerate or whatever, and it sounds really conspiratorial, of keeping all the adults busy so that they can control the way that they teach your children. Because if you control the education to your children, you control the future of the world. Hitler said it. That's one of his most famous statements.
Mm-hmm.
You control the education of children, and I will show you what the future will be.
Yeah.
That is so scary. And yet it feels like we're all being hoodwinked. We're all ostriched. All of our heads are in the sand.
Heads are in the sand.
And we're like, fuck, whatever happens at school is what happens at school. And then all of a sudden your kids come home with a gay straight alliance. You're like, what the fuck is this?
Surprise.
Right? Or your kid comes home and says, I'm transgender now. I learned about it in school. What? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think it's partly up to a parent to be involved.
100%.
Right?
100%. But where is the initiation from the teachers to the parent? And what does that look like? I mean, I think you're in a position right now where your child is about ready to go to school in the next 5 to 6 years. And you might actually be on it a little bit more because we're having this conversation at such a predetermining factor, right?
I am such a control freak. I feel like I'm going to be a parent that annoys the teacher probably.
Well,
I will want to know everything. Like, what are you learning? When? Why? Well, do you think you can add this in there? Or do you think we can find out if other parents want this and this and that? I can't think of specifics right now, but I feel like I'll probably be that mom where eventually my daughter's going to be like, Mom, stop. You're so embarrassing.
Well, at the same time, though, I think it's necessary at this time because we're allowing the school to have so much power. We're allowing these fucking strangers. Like, it's like this. We're supposed to trust the police, right?
Yes.
Now, how many police do you actually trust? Because there's a reason why you get nervous when you're talking to them. There's a reason for that. Okay, so really, your body's telling you, yeah, I don't really fucking trust this person. Yet they're hired by the state as a trustworthy person.
Yeah.
Yet the teacher is hired by the state or the government or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying that all teachers are bad.
No.
But it's better for us, I think, to be in the premise of, I'm not really fucking sure.
Yeah, I guess
right?
when it comes to a teacher, they are just automatically trusted for your child's mental and physical well-being.
And then if you want to go up in the structure, the people who culminated the curriculum that's being propagated to your children, you have entrusted that one, they have the best interests of your children's education at heart. The reality is they don't have the best interests of your kid. What they really have is the best interests of the government creating taxes off of them. That's the fucking reality. Why are they giving free education? It's so that they have the best employable workers in the world. Fact. They're not doing it because it's fucking cool. Like that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because the next generation that's coming up has to pay motherfucking taxes. We're not paid off when you and I retire. Our kids are not paid off when they retire. This is the reason why education is so important. And so what are they learning? They're learning to be a better employee. That's where this has all changed. They're not learning independence. No. Why do you think it's incentivized to have your child in daycare at such a young age? Groupthink. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why they want the back to that segregation, so on and so forth. I'm just very suspicious of the entire thing.
I see that, but you are bringing up some good points. Ones that I haven't thought of.
I'm just very suspicious that, we just give way too much power to people we don't even know.
Yeah, it's just an automatic thing for most people.
And sure, we may have elected the official that's supposedly the head of it.
Yeah.
But the bureaucrats are the ones who really run it. Like the bureaucrats are the ones who really make the decision and discern which way and steer which way they're going. Right? That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And do I really acknowledge that they're the ones that should be doing that? Maybe I don't want my kid to be a fucking an engineer for a tech company. Maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want my kid to be, I don't know, fucking building cabins in the bush and living off the fucking land. Maybe that's what I want.
Yeah, right.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally
I don't
get
have
it.
a choice in that anymore. It's gone. If back in the day, if you were a farmer, your kid didn't go to fucking school during harvest. Didn't happen. Why? You fucking need them at your house.
Yeah.
You need them on the farm.
It's more important at the farm, for sure.
Right? If you were living in the bush and it's hunting season, your kid doesn't go to fucking school. We got to gut the moose. We got to go find them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, that's like long gone, it seems. That way of living anyways.
And when you look at it, how much does that structure the family? You're dependent upon each other now.
Yep.
Does that unit still happen? I don't believe so. I don't believe so. And the teacher, actually, if you really want to break down the hours, spends more time with your children than you do.
Absolutely. Way more.
And so, and we have to recognize that it's not, as much as they can put a personal touch within the curriculum that they're disseminating to the children that they have in their class, they're still subject to having a certain quota from the school board to say, you have to have this, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, they can add their little touches, but...
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't see the consultation between parents and children. I see an individual, like parent-teacher conferences, and I see like the PTA, to a degree, but the PTA has no fucking say into what the school board does.
No.
So like, I'm just totally flabbergasted that, well, if we look at the Catholic school board here in Alberta, I mean, the ex-minister David Egan enforced upon the Catholic school board something that they just didn't agree with morally, and said, if you don't accept it, we're taking your funding away. Like, to me, it's ridiculous. Like, that's ridiculous, because they would have never did that with any other school board. They decided to do it to that one. Right. And it's a private school. The Catholic school board in Alberta is private. It takes public dollars, but for instance, if your daughter wanted to go to Catholic school, or you were going to put her in Catholic school, your taxes would go actually to that school board. You pay higher taxes for it.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
That's how that works. You pick public or private. And if your kid's going to private school, you have to say which one. And then that's where your taxes are allotted to.
Huh, I didn't know that.
And that's why it's done that way. We just allow the government to dispense those funds.
So if your child isn't Catholic, they can still go to a Catholic school?
Yeah. But you're the one who decided that the philosophies in that school are what you want your kid subject to.
I know of people who have sent their children to Catholic schools just for the Just for the reason that the other school that was within range of their home, they didn't like. They just picked the better one.
Granted, but my point is if you're sending your kid to a Catholic school, you need to accept the precursors that those are the philosophies that your kid is going to learn.
Yes, yeah.
That's what I'm saying here. You can't say, well, you know, I'm going to send my kid to Catholic school, but we're Jewish, and I don't want my kid having pork in school. What the fuck, man?
No, I think I was just getting at that. For the longest time, I didn't know that you could still send your, like, if they weren't baptized and if they weren't already being taught or practicing a Catholic religion, I wasn't aware that they could still go to a Catholic school.
Oh, sure they can.
Yeah.
But I think that's that because they don't say your kid has to be baptized and all that stuff. Because of that, this is where parents, you know, and I'm using this as an example. I don't actually mean this, but then all of a sudden what you get, because you don't have these precursors from the faith, so to say, air quotes.
Yeah.
You then have a Jewish family that says, I want my kid to go to a Catholic school and you can't have pork. Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to, it's all got to be kosher. Mm-hmm. What the fuck? You can't do that to the school. That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not the philosophical ideology that school or that institution is ran by. There's a reason why it's called the Catholic School Board.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like if we were to put a Catholic kid into a Muslim school, it's not up to the Catholic family to dictate what that kid or can and cannot do. And that's you've accepted the precursors of the Islamic way, the way how that school is orientated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way how that ship is moving.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
You can't go in there and be expect them to be the exception.
And this is also my fact with public school. If you have a public school system and I don't know, you're Hindi or whatever the fuck it is, and you're like, well, you have to have this dietary thing in the cafeteria. Like fuck you do. Bring your food yourself.
Yeah.
Right? This is a public domain. Are we going to start now making all of the food courts amicable to every philosophy? No, you can't. It's impossible.
You can't do it.
This is why I'm saying inclusivity is bullshit.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit. If you want to make it fit, you have to do it with children in a microcosm. You can't expect society to accept. Inclusivity is actually, I get to do whatever the fuck I want to do, and you get to accept it.
Yeah.
That's what inclusivity is. It's like I say, if I say something and you get pissed off about what I'm saying, and I wasn't out to actually try to get you, or I said something that was maybe insensitive and I didn't recognize it, that's fair. I mean, I'll apologize afterwards, and that's fine. But at the same time, it's you who took something in context of however you took it from what I've said.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not responsible for your fucking
anyone's feelings. Yeah.
Right? I'm not responsible for that.
You're not responsible. Well, nobody is responsible for somebody else's feelings or reactions. That is completely up to that individual.
And if they say that they felt however they felt, well, then it's up to me to say, well, yeah, I'm okay. I apologize for what I said.
Yeah.
And end of story.
Yeah.
But this whole inclusivity issue, like, well, you just can't say that because somebody might be offended. Like, fuck. Be offended. That's your right.
Yeah.
Exert your feelings.
It is absolutely impossible to keep everybody happy. You can't please everybody.
How many times did you have all those kids happy?
Oh, never.
It's impossible.
Never.
And then
Unless it was time for a treat.
And now we're looking at the farm of 48 million Canadians? Like, it's a farm of people. 48 million Canadians. Are you going to have all of them happy? Not a fucking chance. But how are they the most happiest? By exerting their individual rights.
Yeah.
And everybody accepts it.
Yeah.
Not saying, instead of saying, no, this has to be there. What the fuck what are you talking about? You want that here? Bring it yourself. You have all the right to chop up some fucking lamb, do whatever the fuck you're going to do with it in the back of your yard and eat it. Mm-hmm. Good for you. Good for you. God bless. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Good for you, right? Like that's what it boils down to. The only place where this separates is when we're talking about education and the institution of all these cultures, all these people coming to one place. This is where we can actually devise some sort of society that's inclusive. Mm-hmm. But yet we still allow everybody in that schoolyard to segregate themselves.
Yes.
I think we touched on some pretty valuable food for thought. How much of it is nature and nurture? When is it that a child actually accepts that that's their cultural role, or their role in society is this is where we are?
So early.
It's nuts, man. And I think we also opened up some sort of thought about how much do we really trust the institutions? I mean, Canadians are horrible for it.
For trusting?
Oh,
just automatically
fuck.
trusting?
Yeah, yeah. We're so dozy, man.
Yeah.
You look at our American friends down there, they don't trust a fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like they'll bring a gun to PTA meetings. Fuck that. I don't like you. Guess what? Like certain places in America, not all places in America, but certain places like that. Like that's, I guess that what I'm saying is that they're not going to shoot up a school or anything. What I'm saying is that their mentality is they just don't trust a fucking thing. They're very skeptical of it all. They have more of a republic thinking than we do as Canadians.
Yes.
Canadians don't have a revolution bone really, unless you're from that asshole place I called Quebec. Like they have a revolutionary bone. But anywhere else, it doesn't really exist in Canada. They're more amicable towards accepting that the government really, and I think this also falls into us having free healthcare and stuff. Mm-hmm. Look at all of that. And then this is what gives like your kids like your daughter having the health issues that she has. Mm-hmm. This just reinforces to you that the state is all about helping you.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
She is an upcoming taxpayer, my friend.
Yeah.
Right? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Think about how much money that cost to have her.
Yeah.
Well, she better be fucking something. Tell you what. You know what I mean? Like that's why the state's doing it. They're not doing it. Oh yeah, we're just good people over here. Like fuck they are. Like, come on. Anyways, that's an hour.
Oh wow. That's a lot to let sink in, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But honestly, do you know how many people you would need to even take in everything that you have just said and think about it and process it and be on the same page in order for anything to even change for this inclusive, I can't even say it, inclusivity.
Inclusivity?
Yeah, that's the word.
Well, if you look at what the government's doing, they're trying to, in my opinion, take away the right of an individual, and they're trying to class it as groups, and we need to be inclusive of all groups. Mm-hmm. Stripping the individuality of a person then takes away your freedom of expression.
Yep.
And I believe in the right of, no matter how ignorant your thought is, you have the right to express that feeling. No matter how ignorant it is. I don't care how fucking dumb you are. You have the right to say it. And if that's the vernacular, if the vernacular that you choose is inappropriate, who am I to judge that it's inappropriate? That was the way that you were able to disseminate your feelings.
And ignorant means you don't know anything.
That's right.
A lot of people confuse arrogant and ignorant.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying is ignorance is afforded the opportunity to say whatever they want to say, no matter the vernacular they need to use. And if they use vernacular that's most people would consider inappropriate, well, it's your responsibility to engage them in a conversation so that they are no longer ignorant. And then if they are no longer ignorant and they choose to continue with the way that they're disseminating their feelings, well, then there's something else.
Then.
That's still not arrogant. Mm-hmm. That's just somebody who is an asshole.
Yeah.
Really. There's a difference. But who are we to come to a place where we're contempt prior to investigation? Yeah. And even me saying that, I feel entitled by saying that. I'm not entitled. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I probably disseminate my feelings in an ignorant way at times, And so I hope that somebody who's smarter in the room can say to me, "Hey, Justin, let's talk about that for a second."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's why we do this. Because some of these things, as we're saying, all of a sudden people go, "Fuck, yeah, that's a different perspective. It's a whole other way. I never realized that we were so trusting of the government.
Well, you just opened my eyes, because at first I was just do.
Well, it's easy to be, I think, especially as Canadians, because we have so many reinforcements. We're dozy into that, right? We doze into that. We're just like, yeah, well, they help me. Like, fuck they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, what do you think your takeaway is from this conversation when it goes to putting your youngster in a school?
Oh, my God. I don't know. I'm glad I have a few years.
How deep do you think you're going to go now? Like, when you're looking at the school board, blah, 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 how deep are you going to go? Are you going to talk to parents who already have their kids?
Talk to parents whose kids are already enrolled?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably a good idea. But then again, how would I even know if those parents are involved? How would I know if they know anything, right? And talking to the teachers, I have plenty of teacher friends.
Sure.
That's why all of this is a completely different perspective for me.
Yeah. Well, I have teacher friends.
Yeah.
They just don't like it when I say this stuff.
Yeah, I bet.
Like they get upset.
They take it personally.
Well, for sure, because they are a tribe, man,
Yeah.
and their tribe is the union and their philosophy and all this stuff, and you know what really fucking kills me with a lot of teachers is they've got that tone where it's like, well, how does that go? Like it's this up inflection at the end of a sentence. Like,
I know what you mean.
Well, did you not see that? And I'm like, motherfucker, man. Like really? You're gonna fucking look down your fucking snout at me? Fuck you. Like that. It's just the way how the tone triggers. Like it hits me, and I'm like, fuck you. Like right away. If there's anything that I could say about that school down in Southern Ontario, the teachers never did that to us. Ever. Never, ever, ever. Those teachers were on their fucking A game. A lot of those teachers were doctorates in education they were teaching us. So they weren't like, they were fucking amazing people. Like doctorates in education, right? So like they went to teacher college, sure. But there's a difference between a doctorate in education and like a teacher.
Yeah.
Right? Like a doctorate in education can like perform classes to a large group of people, no matter what it is. They can even do counseling and stuff to a degree, right? Teachers can't do that.
No.
I mean, they can because it's a group idea, but it's not the same thing as like a doctorate of education.
So if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Like,
so
there's not much you can do. Homeschool?
I've been in your shoes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like currently, what would be your advice? Or
I would suggest what I would do is I would start looking at private school. I don't mean Catholic private school. I mean real private school. And what does that take in order for me to accommodate that kind of income in order for my child to go there? Because you know who gets the best advantages? Are those kids. Those kids aren't getting a dissemination of a group ideology. They're being constructed to be a part of the world in an Ivy League way. Mm-hmm. That's, if you want to give the advantages and like go scrub toilets so that your kid really has a place to go to, that's what you do. In my opinion.
What about the stereotypical nose up in the air personality that children in Ivy schools get?
Guess what? That's up to you.
Yeah. Okay. That as I was saying,
to a degree, that's up to you.
A huge, because that can happen in any school.
I mean, now your kid may be out. Well, I'll put it to you this way. So when I was in private school like that, the other kids didn't know my poverty class.
Okay.
Right? Because they're all in uniforms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's a different thing. And then all of a sudden your kid comes to where you're living. And then they also see the other side of things.
Yeah.
Right? And you need to enforce with that child, I am busting my fucking ass so that you can have something way better than I could have ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for you. You know, you want to go to university and be something and be around kids who don't have just an advantage. They have a magnificent edge in life. This is the environment I want you to be in. This is the quantum leap that that our family name is going to take.
Right.
This is how it happens. Because let's all face it, we want to believe that your kid's going to become a doctor at a fucking public school, but you know what the odds are in that? It's like 1 to 2%. It's very, very minimal. Very, very minimal. And even those enriched kids that were in regular schooling here, they become engineers.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying anything against engineers, but all I'm saying is they're still an asshole working for Stantec.
Yeah.
They're not the person who came out of school running Stantec. Those Ivy League kids are the kids who get those advantages. See that? The kid who ran Stantec and came out of like U of A, okay, and started off as some asshole engineer in the fucking back room, out in the field and all that stuff. I'm not saying that it's not possible for him or for them to become the runner or the CEO of some magnificent company. I'm not saying it's impossible. All I'm saying is it's dramatically more difficult for them to do that.
Definitely. They have to work
10 times
extra hard in their adult life
100.
Instead of doing it in school.
So if you really want to do something for your kid, work harder for them to go to a private school of that nature. Right? I mean, that in my opinion, and we're very great. Like, we're very lucky. I mean, we come from, well, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for you, but I come from a thought culture in my family where school's stupid. Like, education is dumb. What? Like, if I look at all my cousins, they're college grads. One of them is a university grad. My brother doesn't even want to go to college.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying that that's the only way to make a living. And you know what? Maybe some of them are happy being a mechanic, and that's great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But, I mean, how much of that came from the microcosm of the culture of school stupid?
Yeah.
Go be some grunter.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote it in this week's in the blog of a couple weeks ago where I was like, you could be a grunter. You know, who the fuck wants to be that? Nobody wants to be that.
It's easy to be that. That's why lots of people are.
But you burn out.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have been a bricklayer and I'd be done at 50.
Oh, yeah.
Done. Physically done. Like, I'm not doing anything after 50 years. Your fucking body's broken down. Unless I bought my own company and ran it.
Exactly.
Now, what's the likelihood of that?
Yeah.
You see, like that's the chicken before the egg scenario. And like I said, higher education is the best way, especially if you are not somebody who has a doctorate of education, so on and so forth. That's in my opinion the best way. And sometimes maybe your child after a couple of years, you know, shows you that that's not the place for them. So then you put them in private school after a couple of years because they say that's just not what they want. Well, that's fine too. But at least they were given the opportunity, or maybe start them off in private school and then start them off in public school and then send their ass over to a real private school.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the thing. You know, but you don't know unless you don't do it. And I know people that I do business with right now who are in private school. I'm going to tell you something about college and university. When you go to college and university, you only work with the people, your colleagues in university or college. You don't look for anybody outside of your culture. Again, it's another segregation.
Yeah.
Right? Like I wouldn't work with some guy out of Cogs in the geomatic realm, like Cogs University. I wouldn't do it. Would I work with somebody out of like University of Calgary? Yeah. We had the same education.
Yeah.
Right? Would I work with somebody even out of NAIT? Well, of course I would. Because the people who were teaching those geomatic programs in NAIT are the same people, like they're the same as the engineers.
Yeah.
It all becomes, who do you know?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Doctors, who do you know? Where the fuck do you think they went to school together? Come on. And do you think that they're going to talk outside of school of each other? No. Of course you're not. So those kids who are in private school, what do you think they're doing? Kids who go to Yale and fucking Harvard and all, what do you think they're doing? They've been cultivated since they were in elementary school all the way through life.
Oh, for sure.
And some flake off and they become addicts and they fuck up, or mommy daddy's really rich. But there are very, very few kids that are, coming from the poverty-stricken side of things, or the upper middle class in that school. And you're like, fuck it, we're going to live in an apartment and I'm going to pay $80,000 a year for you to go to fucking school. And we're going to live I'm going to live off 40, like that's the other thing, I mean, it's a choice. And you look at other cultures where that's the push. That's the push. It's all about education.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They'll scrub toilets.
I was going to say, some have to work so much harder, right? Like, especially from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, like that, you and I, coming from a North American mentality, and the families that we come from, where education isn't so sought after, we have to really change that for our kids.
Yes, I agree.
And that might be the way how we do it. It may not be just enough to push them into school, because the aunt or the grandma or whoever may say something, well, school's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get the homework that the kid was bringing home. See that? Mm-hmm. That's why we got the idea. Fuck that. I don't know that. Well, if you don't know it and you're getting through life, why the fuck do I?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the microcosm of a fucking boarding residence school. It's not what it is. Mm-hmm. Way different.
I believe it.
Anyway.
I have so much to think about.
Well, here's your blog.
Yeah.
All right. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, comment below, whether it be YouTube or even on the podcasting page, the app page, wherever it may be. You can always check out the After the Show blog at www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com. And you can also get us at minds.com. Those are the places where we say all the stuff that we're not allowed to say on Facebook, so on and so forth, because of censorship on Facebook. Mm-hmm. You can always check us out at our Facebook page, and we sometimes, or most times, or hopefully at times, have sneak peeks at the upcoming shows here and there. And you can also get us at, what's your Instagram page again?
Chelsey _ Life on Life's Terms.
And then there's also your Twitter page.
Chelsey Kapler.
And I have a Twitter page, just punch in Life on Life's Terms, it should pop up. And then there's an Instagram page called Life on Life's Terms Podcast, all one word. It will pop up there as well. Please subscribe to those venues, because sometimes we release information and stuff that's just happening in our life in that moment too on those platforms.
Yeah, definitely.
So have yourself a wonderful day, and hope this intrigued some of your curiosity about all of these topics.
Got those wheels turning.
Yeah. Have a beautiful day. Bye for now.
Bye.